Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd, and I am a huge fan of cars used in old British TV series filmed between the late 1950s and late 1990s. Join me on a journey as we look back on over 40 years of British television and its relationship with the automobile. I made a selection of videos last year talking about a lot of these series, and I'm doing it again to make them even better. As many of you know, I'm a huge fan of ITC Series of the 60s and 70s, and possibly what the favourite amongst many of you will be is the Persuaders. This is a series starring Tony Curtis and Roger Moore, and it was filmed between 1970 and 71 and then broadcast between 71 and 72. Tony Curtis appears as Danny Wilde, who is a Brooklyn-born, self-made millionaire. Roger Moore appears as Lord Brett Sinclair, a sort of member of the aristocracy, racing driver, athlete, linguist. Kind of a bit of a bum, really, though, in some ways, because he just kind of hangs around and doesn't really do very much. The third main character in The Persuaders is Lawrence Naismith as Judge Fulton, and the premise behind it is that these two men, Danny Wilde, and Lord Brett Sinclair, are in the French Riviera, down at Monte Carlo actually, and they have a fight in a hotel over whether or not a Crazy Scream cocktail contains an olive. Judge Fulton gives them a chance to not go to jail in return for doing a few jobs for him. These jobs would be following up people who have kind of escaped justice that he considers to have actually, committed the crimes, but not enough evidence to put them behind bars. And they start to do a few jobs for him. Now, he doesn't appear in all the episodes, and he's not always in the south of France. It just happens to look very glamorous, and of course, it does. It looks wonderful. This is one of the most expensive looking ITC series they ever made. There's still some dodgy back projection. There's still some, fairly cheap looking sets at sometimes, and they're still trying to use bits of Britain as other places, shall we say. But it's very much the most glamorous of all the series, because we have Aston Martins, Dinos, or what later would become Dino Ferraris, I should say, because they weren't badged as Ferraris at the time, although they're made by the same people, of course. We have big Mercedes grosses. We have some very good actors. I mean, Terry Thomas is in the series, for example, which is pretty crazy, really, for a television show at the time. The locations they went to, south of France, Nice, Monte Carlo, Jean Lepin, Antibes, places like that. Rome. They went to Sweden. They went to Paris. They went to all sorts of different places. Switzerland as well. A good majority of episodes, though, do take place in Britain, and in some ways it's all the better for it, really. But let's look at some of the cars, because there's some very nice ones in the Persuaders. Back in the day, of course, that Roger Moore was on the Saint, and in fact, Persuaders and the Saint were produced by the same person, Robert S. Baker. He had a Volvo P1800 because Jaguar had refused to supply an E-Type. This time, though, they went straight to the top. This is post on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and actually it's virtually the same car that Sean Lazenby drove in on Her Majesty's Secret Service. He had an Aston Martin DBS. I think it was a Vantage. This one is a standard DBS as far as I know, although the wheels are from a V8 Vantage, a V8 DBS. It's a Bahama yellow car, PPP6H. There was only one of them that was used. The usual registration number, of course, is not that. It's BS1, which was actually given permission to use by Billy Smart Circus. The car does still exist, and it has its own Facebook page or something, I think, which is interesting. The colour really isn't to my taste. I don't think it really should be a car like that in that colour. The Her Majesty's Secret Service car in a gunmetal grey is, to my eyes anyway, far nicer, but that's just me. Of course, another glamorous car for his co-star Tony Curtis, which is a Dino 246 GT. Now, this was effectively a Ferrari, but it was a sort of junior Ferrari, and the engine was shared with a Fiat Dino. But they weren't called Ferraris until the sort of late 70s, I think. So it's a Dino 246 GT for 1969. Johnny Goodman, the production supervisor, I think he was in the Persuaders, drove that car all the way back from the factory in Modena to Pinewood Studios, where Persuaders was based. He had a nice job. I mean, a lot of people on Persuaders seem to have nice jobs. The next car that you would see actually from the episode Greensleeves is a 1964 Austin Mini Deluxe. Now that actually is the same car used in Randall and Hawkirk Deceased, which is interesting, really. BAP 245B. I don't know why they had it hanging around, but they do. That car still exists actually as well. In the episode Long Goodbye, Valerie Leon gets accosted by Roger Moore, who demands that she drives her Mini-based rocket car around sort of Maida Vale area and what's the name of the road? Hamilton Terrace. That's it. Hamilton Terrace, NW8, and sort of Abercorn Terrace, that kind of area in Maida Vale. It's a strange scene they put in that episode Long Goodbye, and Roger Moore thought it was great because he directed it himself. So there you go. What more do I have to say? In 5 Miles to Midnight with Joan Collins, they have a 1948 Citroen Type H, it's an H van. H vans are quite hard to date. This one, I don't know what it dates, so maybe the 60s, but they came out in 48, so that's the date we go with. And then in Someone Waiting, you also see a 1965 Ford Econoline van. I don't know why they had a left-hand drive van in that episode. That's just the way that it was. Another famous face you'd see in the Persuaders would be Diane Cilento, who at the time was Sean Connery's wife. She actually appeared in You Only Live Twice as one of the stunt doubles. She has, in the episode A Death in the Family, which is the last episode they filmed, a 1971 Ford Capri Mark 1. Now it has, for some reason, has a Scottish plate on it, USG 432J. It wasn't a press car or anything, but it's probably a sort of L or XL or something. It's not a high spec one by any means, probably a 1300, 1600. What is a press car, though, from Ford was in the episode Read and Destroy. It's a 1971 Ford Cortina GXL. Don't know what engine's in that. A KHK 536J. Sort of similar colour to Bahama Yellow of the Aston Martin DBS, funnily enough, although Ford would have called it something different. In Power Switch, there's a Ford Mustang, which actually there's a 65 in the sort of scenes shot in Britain, which was some studio filming and also some location filming at the Stewlan Dam, which is in North Wales. That looks very much like a car in Goldfinger. Of course, it probably isn't. There is a 67 car used in the sort of shots that were done in the south of France, but the car doesn't really appear on screen very much, so I'm just going to show the 65 one. In That's Me Over There, there's a Ford Cortina 1600E. And another car from Someone Waiting is a 1968 Volkswagen Carbon Gear 1600 and the Type 34, which is the square type of carbon gear. It's SGT444F. That car is also still around as far as I know. It's unsawn. For some weird reason, that particular car in Someone Waiting has two number plates at the front. It's got one at the top and one at the bottom. I don't really know why. It's a bit weird, really. And then the man in the middle, Terry Thomas, gets a lift in a 1964 Vauxhall Cresta PB from a chap who's pretending to be a journalist. Just pretending, of course, you know how these things go. Another car used in A Death in the Family is a 1967 Triumph Spitfire Mark III, which is looking very, very rusty, even though it's about 4 years old by the time they filmed it. That's driven, I think, by Denham Elliott. Lots and lots and lots of big stars in the Persuaders, as I said. Another car from Man in the Middle is 1971 Toyota Crown, the S60 variety. Now, this episode's supposed to be in Italy, but it was shot in Black Park and Pinewood Studios. And the car's right-hand drive, so there's no way that it's not a UK market car. Nevertheless, very interesting. Toyota's very rare in Britain in 1971, and that's always stuck in my mind ever since I watched the series for the first time in 1995 for some reason. Don't know why. In Angie, the second episode, there's a 1966 Renault Caravelle. It wouldn't be an ITC series, of course, without the red Renault Dauphine that goes off the cliff at Box Hill in Surrey, that was originally filmed for the Baron. But in this one, it's a Gordini, and it's supposed to be in Switzerland, although they did actually film bits of it in Switzerland. The obviously bit where you go to the cliff was filmed years and years beforehand in Surrey. The car that chases the Renault Dauphine is a 1969 Peugeot 504, and in the episode The Gold Napoleon, there's a 1966 Peugeot 404 as well that gets, I think, pushed down a hill by Roger Moore and Tony Curtis. Let's now go to the episode Nuisance Value and talk about a couple of the cars used in that. In the first scene, you see a 1970 NSU R080, which was a very rare car at the time. Again, it's right-hand drive, so the episode is supposed to be set in Spain, but we all know it's not. It's first appears at a place called the Bell House Hotel, which is near Beaconsfield. I can't remember the name of the hotel now, but it's on the A40. I've actually been there a couple of times. The hotel looks very different now from what it did at the time. And then there are some bits which are shot with that car in North Wales, as well as with a Mercedes 600, which you saw, a big Mercedes 600 Grosser. In the episode That's Me Over There, there's a 1964 MGB. Now, 971WHN was also used in an episode of The Avengers, which is called Super Secret Cipher Snatch. I'll just point that out for the sake of, you know, when we speak about the cars of The Avengers in more depth, we will cover that too. In the morning after, there is a Range Rover press car, PXC 342J, and that's used in a nice action sequence, a nice chase. In Element of Risk, there's a 1969 Jaguar XJ6, ABY678G. It's not a press car as far as I'm aware. And in A Home of One's Own, which is a very weird episode I've always found, there is a 1969 Jaguar 88-inch Series 2A, which Danny Wilde himself actually drives. Into the last section now. In the episode Anyone Can Play, Ford supplied a press car, which is a 1971 Ford Escort 1100L KWC 121J. That was filmed in Brighton. In the episode To the Death Baby, there's a 1965 Jaguar E-Type. It's a Series 1 Roadster, GYU439C. That also appears in a couple of other films, like It's Your Funeral from 1972. In the Time and the Place, there's a 1969 Ford Corsair Super. Now that is involved in a chase and it supposedly gets destroyed, but halfway through where the car rolls over, it turns into a Ford Anglia, which is mildly hilarious. But, you know, they got to cut the budget somewhere. In That's Me Over There, there's also a very interesting car. It's a 1967 Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud 1. The chassis number of that is actually on the internet as being in everything. That car appeared in The Avengers, The Professionals, just all sorts of different episodes. In this particular episode, it has the plate MWF 435F, but in the 1970s, it was OPH2. So if you ever see that car, you'll know it's been in so many things. It's quite famous, really. And then we'll finish off with the episode Someone Like Me, and it has a 1970 Ford Zephyr 6 BBJ 710H. Is The Persuaders worth watching today? Absolutely, yes. It is brilliant fun. It's slightly camp. It's very funny. Some of the sort of production decisions are quite interesting. It's completely ridiculous. Roger Moore is wonderful, so is Tony Curtis. They obviously were having a lot of fun, and it's a massive shame that it actually got cancelled because Roger Moore actually won a contract to be James Bond, and they decided to cancel the series because of that, to go and film Live and Let Die. They were going to use Rex Harrison's son, Noel Harrison, as a replacement for him in the second series, but it just never came to anything. They never made a second series. Only 24 episodes exist, and I recommend you watch them. So thank you ever so much indeed once again. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. Like this video and leave a comment below. Don't forget to visit my Instagram, the Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. Also my Facebook page, www.lloydvehicleconsulting.co.uk. Thank you ever so much indeed for watching.